Welcome to Demolition Success Secrets, the podcast that's changing the game for demolition businesses everywhere. Ever wondered how a wrecking ball wielding industry can leverage digital marketing to dominate their market? Well, we've got the blueprints, strategies, expert guests, and more to show you how. Stay tuned, because we're about to blast through the barriers of your business.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of Demolition Success Secrets. We have an awesome guest today, Peter. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So I think we had a really cool kind of chat in the pre-interview about the NDA. Could you tell kind of that 25-year to now 50-year? I think that will be a fun little way to start off with your experience in the demolition industry, which has not been for a few short years.
Well, I've had sort of three demolition-related jobs in my career. One was with Atlas Copco, which is now Epiroc, and then then I had 20 years with them, and then 8 years with Brock, the Swedish demolition robot manufacturer, also here in North America. And then now, currently, I'm with Mecalac. It's a French manufacturer of construction equipment. And with all three of those companies, one of our market segments, and certainly very important market segments, was the demolition industry. And so it made perfect sense to be members of the National Demolition Association. And in fact, the first convention that I ever attended of the NDA was their silver anniversary convention, which was in Florida. And now here we are in just a week or so, we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the National Demolition Association in San Antonio, Texas. And so it's a nice little bookends, some bookends to my career in this industry of supplying equipment to the demolition industry all these years.
Yeah, it will be fun. And some of our audience, they'll be attending as well in San Antonio. Obviously, you and I will be. Could you give any insights, for people who are maybe on the fence, for this event? It's obviously coming up soon, but maybe they're on the fence of joining the association. Maybe they're on the fence of going to an event, be it this one or next year. What is kind of your takeaways? What is the experience like in person at one of the events?
Well, I'd have to say, certainly having now 25 years of these under my belt, the conventions are terrific opportunities for networking. I mean, there's no question that, you have roughly 1,000 people in the demolition industry gathering in one place to have exchange of views, to have a few drinks. There's some great events that they put on. But I think, networking is probably, and I think it comes up consistently in surveys of the NDA membership, networking is by far the single most important aspect of the association that people value. One thing that they've done in recent years, which I think has just been a game changer, is that before the sort of the traditional convention starts, or of course now it's part of the traditional convention, they have something called the live demo event, which is I think this year they're going to have 35 large pieces of equipment with shears and crushers and hydraulic breakers and grapples. They'll have high reach excavators, people like Liebherr and Volvo and Caterpillar, Senebogen come, they bring their serious equipment to this show. We'll be there with a 15-ton and a 6-ton excavator, Mecalac excavator. But you have a tremendous range of equipment. But the best part of it is, unlike ConExpo, which of course is a huge show, but unlike ConExpo, you can actually get into these machines and operate them. So they have concrete, they have piles of scrap metal at each station, if you will, and you can sign up and you can take a turn in the equipment. So it's a terrific opportunity for people to see and touch and feel what's out there. And everybody really kind of joins in, and you have participation from all the major manufacturers to show what they have. And I think people really appreciate that particular day. I think this year it's Thursday, the 7th of March, and that kicks things off. And one of the longtime NDA members, Tim Ramone, of Ramone, J.R. Ramone and Sons, has offered his own property to stage the event.
Cool.
And so he'll be hosting, and I'm sure he'll be hoping for the best in terms of weather. But I think it's a short bus ride from the convention hotel. And again, you get a chance to see all this equipment and run it. And I'd have to say that I think this, I forget whether this is the 5th or the 6th year that they've done this, but as I said earlier, it is a game changer. It has totally changed the way people sort of experience the NDA and all the vendors like us who participate in that particular event.
That's super cool. And I've heard commonly that everyone's seemingly very open and welcoming. A lot of people in the general world would think, oh, it's demolition, it's, calluses on the hands, banging your head against the wall, trying to get projects done. But I've heard pretty regularly, this will be my first time going. I've been involved with demo for years now, but I guess never decided to go to the event. I guess the 50th year, the fact that I used to live in San Antonio, something like that, and the fact that the podcast, everyone's been talking about it. It sounds like everyone's pretty open and a good group of people who all want to grow together.
I think that's very true. And, for an association that started with, a handful of people in Chicago 50 years ago, demolition contractors who were looking to instill, a level of professionalism and, respect for the trade, to what it's become today. The emphasis on education, on safety, on the latest thing is certification. They have put together Peter Banks and Tim Ramone have headed up an initiative to create basically an exam and a set of requirements that people can take and become certified demolition project managers. And it's something which, again, having sat in board meetings for the last many years, more than I'd care to count, and have them talk about this and sort of, it's a very complicated thing to do. There's some legal issues. They're obviously creating the content, creating the questions to make sure that the questions are fair and relevant. And they've done a job, and people are now starting to take this certification test. And if you're in the demolition business, if you can identify someone as being certified as someone who can operate and manage a job site safely, I mean, that's a fantastic leap forward for the industry. And I really take my hat off to the folks who did that. It was a lot of work to do it. But that's just one thing that they've done. Safety, I think they've got over 100 toolbox, safety talks that they do. They've got a safety app now, which you can access on your phone. I would say it's not your father's NDA. It's really, they've dragged themselves into the 21st century. and again, I think for people, they certainly know how to have fun. There's certainly a lot of fun things to do at these gatherings. But again, I think there's a sort of a seriousness of purpose, a common purpose, to improve the industry and make it safer, make it more inclusive, make it more professional, and I think that's what they're going for. And so, yeah, it's the 50th anniversary. I'm certainly looking forward to it. It should be a good time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Texas isn't too far away, and would love to know about you, Peter. Like, how did you get in the industry? It sounds like you've definitely had kind of a career based in this, but what
Yep.
what got you into the business to begin with?
Well, I was working for family business, and we were bringing in excavators from England, specialty excavators, and we hit a patch where the manufacturer, we sold the business back to the manufacturer. This was back in the 80s, and I had the good fortune to be headhunted by Atlas Copco, and I joined their construction tool business. And the president at the time was Swedish, and the headhunter told me, he said, "Well, if you take this position," it was VP of Sales and Marketing, there's always a chance that this guy is going to go back to Sweden. He'll be promoted and go back to Sweden. And sure enough, 2 years later, that's exactly what happened. He went back to take on a bigger job in Stockholm, and I became the president of Atlas Copco Construction Tools, position I held for 18 years. And
Wow.
and that was our product lines were everything from electric tools, rotary hammers and that, all the way up to 10-ton hydraulic breakers. During the course of that period, our division at Atlas Copco acquired Krupp, which was at that time a global leader in hydraulic demolition tools, and Atlas Copco at the time was arguably the leader in smaller and compact hydraulic breakers. And so that was it was serendipity that Krupp needed to sell off that division, and combined that really launched Atlas Copco into being truly the world leader in hydraulic breakers. And now most recently, Epiroc, which Atlas Copco became after it was spun off, after the construction and mining group was spun off, and Atlas Copco became Epiroc. And just in the news in the last few weeks, Epiroc has acquired Stanley Infrastructure in a $750 million deal. So they waited till I had left before they decided to really get serious. But of course, what that does for Epiroc is it adds a tremendous range of product, including the jewel in the crown, which would be the Stanley Labouty shears, the hydraulic shears, which are a staple of the demolition industry. So, and then there was some, with the crisis in 2008, there was some reshuffling, and I had the opportunity to go over to Brock, which at the time was a customer of ours, because every Brock demolition robot has now an Epiroc hydraulic breaker on the end of it. And so we knew each other, and I went over there to take on their sales and marketing. And I thought I would retire from Brock. I thought that it was a great company. Loved being with in the demolition industry that I'd been with, involved with through Atlas Copco. But another headhunter came along and made me an offer I couldn't refuse to come and run Mecalac North America. Which I've done for the last 5 years. And Mecalac is a 400 million euro business with factories in France, Germany, England, Turkey. And to have the opportunity to grow the business here in North America has been a great challenge. And to be part of a company that's really brings innovation to the forefront, that's really been a nice challenge. So I'm glad I made the leap. I miss the folks at Brock. They've done very well without me, so I don't worry about them. But Mecalac is actually, funnily enough, we're celebrating our 50th year in business.
Wow.
But in the US, we've only been here since 2017. We incorporated in 2017. So it's very much like being in a startup, but being part of a much larger group. Which is a very nice combination to have. All the excitement of being in a startup, but with the sort of the security blanket of having a larger group behind you, supporting you and providing obviously some pretty cool equipment.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, the resources plus the excitement and adventure.
Yeah.
It's almost, when you think of a startup or something like that, where you can have the multiples of gains every year, as with, a company that's more established, it's like, 5% in a year, which is great, or what have you. But like with you guys, for your segment, it's got to be really, really, really fun and exciting. And like you said, have the kind of safety net, but also the backing and the push from the big daddy is pretty cool.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things about Mecalac, the group, is that they reinvest about 5% of the top line revenues into R&D.
Cool.
And at Atlas Copco, admittedly a much larger company, huge company, billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. But Atlas Copco used to take great pride in reinvesting 3% of their revenues, and Mecalac, again, much smaller company, but still very nice to know that they're plowing 5% of the top line revenues back into basically inventing the next big thing. And not sitting on our laurels. I mean, our excavators, our compact excavators, our MCRs, which we'll be showing our 6-ton MCR, has the boom system is multi-part and can fold in pretty much on itself and be able to operate in very compact, very tight areas, and can work in very low areas as well. And so for demolition companies to use that instead of a traditional excavator with just a 2-piece boom, which can be a little bit ungainly, that's something that's new and different.
That's cool.
Another thing that we'll be showing at NDA convention is our 15-ton excavator with a tilt rotator integrated into the boom system. So you have almost like having a hand at the end of the dipper stick. And again, if you're in the demolition industry, that means you can manipulate, you can sort, you can lift, you can pull out material in a very precise way. So as I say, I mean, Mecalac serves a whole host of different industries, but the demolition industry is an interesting one for us because a lot of the things that we bring to the table really resonate with the needs of that particular segment.
Yeah, sure. So as you guys are going out through the US, I know you're not reinventing the wheel perhaps, but who are your ideal clients, where do they find you guys other than the convention and things? How does that kind of match up? Like what size companies, what part of the country do they typically, collect in? Is that a ballpark? And how
Yeah.
do they come to find you guys?
Well, so our model, the way we go to market is through a distribution network. And so in effect, after seventh year, we still don't have complete coverage over the country or the US and Canada, but I think we're up to 26 dealers around the country. Some of them cover parts of states, and others are covering an entire state. So, for example, in the state of Ohio, we work with Columbus Equipment, which is also a Komatsu dealer and a Kubota and Takeuchi dealer. In Western Pennsylvania, Anderson Equipment, upstate New York, also Anderson Equipment. They're also a Komatsu dealer, and I believe Takeuchi. In Florida, we work with Case Power. As the name suggests, they're also a Case dealer. And so in most places, we work with established, traditional equipment dealerships who are adding the Mechalak brand to their existing portfolio. And then we have some dealers. I was just with one last week in Waukesha, Wisconsin. LF George we are their primary earth moving equipment, which it's unusual, but we love that because obviously they have a lot of focus on Mechalak in that market. Because if they don't want a Mechalak, then they're kind of out of luck. So that's been good. And certainly my mission is to continue to improve our coverage. We're probably going to add another 5 dealers in 2024, okay, at least. And obviously, the more we add, the easier it is for people to find us and people to try machines and see how they fit within their operations. So that's always that's the fun part, and building those relationships. And then we're doing a road show starting next month for a couple of months throughout the Southeast, where people will be able to try the machines. And we'll be doing those in conjunction with our dealers in those areas. And then you asked about our customers, the ideal customer. It's funny, we go all the way from a one-man band, because of a Mechalak compact excavator, whether it's tracked or wheeled, is so versatile. I mentioned the boom. One of the things about a Mechalak excavator is that you can dig with it like any traditional excavator, but you can also put a skid steer loader bucket on it.
Interesting.
Facing the correct direction. And because our tracked excavators can go 6.2 miles per hour, which is twice the speed of any other traditional compact excavator, you suddenly have converted your excavator into a compact track loader, a CTL. And so now you have 2 machines in one. And on top of that, you can put a set of forks on our machines. And because of that boom system, because of the geometry of the boom, you can use it as a material handler. You can actually lower your load to below grade, actually around 10 feet below grade. So that is, again, that's even better than a telehandler, and then of course you can put different tools. You can put hydraulic breakers. We'll have a hydraulic breaker on our 6-ton unit at the show, but you can put flail mowers, sweepers, crushers, mulchers, all kinds of tools. I mean, because we can put a universal skid steer adapter plate on the end of that boom. And so if you, whatever attachment you may have, even ones that require high flow, we can operate them, and makes for a very versatile machine. So obviously, if you're a one-man band, using that one machine gives you an incredible opportunity to do a whole host of things with one piece of equipment on a job site. But we also sell machines. We're just doing a job, or our dealer in Maryland has just sold some of our 15-ton units. We'll have one of those 15-ton units, a wheeled version, at the show. But they just sold, I believe, 3 of our 15-ton units to Skanska, wow, who are doing a huge tunnel project in Baltimore, for the port of Baltimore. And here again, obviously, Skanska, one of the largest construction companies in the world, had their pick of any manufacturer for these excavators. But because of the dimensions of the tunnel, our coming back to our boom system that has this geometry that allows it to operate in very compact areas, it made perfect sense for them to choose Mechalak for this 3-year project to lower the rail by, I don't know, a couple of feet over the course of 3 years, because of course they need to use this tunnel to bring freight to the port of Baltimore. So they can only work, a part of each day, and then they have to skedaddle and allow the trains to keep running. So that's an exciting project that we're very happy to be part of. And shout out to McClung Logan, our dealer in Maryland and Virginia, who've facilitated that sale. It's a fantastic job. But then you also have DOTs that buy Mechalak machines for vegetation control or that sort of thing. And then utilities is another area where they use, again, these versatile machines to do trenching, to do repair, residential repair. Again, just bringing one machine out there instead of multiple machines. But if we come back to the demolition, it's probably the versatility that a Mechalak machine brings to the table, that whether it's, again, going in with low overhead spaces or tight spaces where traditional excavators cannot operate, that's probably where people are mostly interested in what we bring to the market.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you have the aspect of customers who are the demo companies, and then clients would be the dealers themselves.
So the dealers are basically what we would call a channel. Yes, they obviously buy the machines, they stock the machines, they stock parts, we train their service departments. They're the resource for the end users, which would be in your example, the demolition contractors. So, for example, when we brought Anderson Equipment in to the picture to look after most of the state of New York, that meant that companies like Gorick Demolition, or let's see who else, I can't, I'm going to blank on them in the heat of the moment here.
No
but
worries.
Frederico up in Rochester Demolition. So if you're Gorick or Frederico, even if you were interested in Mechalak before, through seeing it on YouTube or through other social media or through the ads in the trade press, it would be a tough sell, because you don't want to just buy a piece of equipment and then who's going to look after it? Where are you going to get the parts for it? Who's going to come and do the 500-hour service for you? And also, for a lot of end users, to have a local dealer is also kind of a stamp of approval, because really their relationship is with the dealer, regardless of what equipment they're buying from that dealer. they're relying on the dealer to support them. The manufacturer, dare I say, the manufacturers can come and go, but it's the dealer, the local dealer, who's going to be looking after them for years to come. It's no different from buying a car. You might like a Ford, but if your local dealer is 100 miles away, or
Right.
if they're terrible, you're probably not going to buy a Ford. So
Mm,
we rely on working with, on identifying and working with good, high quality dealers who believe in the product, who believe in the philosophy of Mechalak, and who then can be the resource for, again, in our example here today, demolition contractors who are looking for the right equipment for their jobs.
got it. Got it. Got it. So I'm kind of curious on this. Obviously, the car dealership, perfect example. How does that work between the dealers versus, the demo companies, contractors, etc.? Do you guys, I heard about YouTube and the social media and things. Do you push heavily on one direction or the other? I assume there needs to be, some verbiage and word of mouth from the actual demo companies to dealers to inspire the dealers to reach out to you guys. But also, I imagine you guys are also reaching out to dealers, actively trying to build those relationships. So how does the ecosystem work? Is it the demo contractors have to give a lot of praise to then have a dealer inquire? Or are you guys mainly just reaching out to dealers, which then kind of fulfills the life cycle? It's probably both.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, it is a bit of an ecosystem, and it is a sort of a uh, it sort of feeds on itself, or sort of organic growth in many ways.
Mhm.
I think a wonderful example is, if you look in Detroit or in Michigan. So we're looking for a dealer in Michigan. Okay. There are a few of them that are out there.
Okay.
Caterpillar is one of them. Obviously, Caterpillar has McAllister up in Michigan. Um, the chances of a cat dealer taking on Mechalak, pretty slim. I
Right.
think
I
I think
think
there's
that's fair.
one Caterpillar dealer in the world who carries Mechalak, and they're in Nigeria. So,
Wow.
uh, so um, Caterpillar dealer pretty much off limits. Although I will say that they do buy some of our more uh, peripheral equipment. I will say that. But Michigan has a limited number of heavy equipment dealers that really do a good job. One of those is called AIS. They are the John Deere dealer for Michigan, the Komatsu dealer for Michigan, I believe also JCB. And we I've known about them for many, many years. But to go to them and say, how would you like to be a Mechalak dealer, is a tall order. They're busy. They have
Right.
other brands that they've got a full plate. But one of the things, to your point, one of the things that we did was we spoke to our friends at Homrich, which is one of the premier demolition companies. There are a number of premier demolition companies in Michigan. Homrich is one of them. Adamo is another. Guyana is a new player who've just made tremendous strides. Beerline is a strong player. And so if you look at the landscape, what I discovered was that Homrich is a very big customer of AIS. Homrich buys a
Mhm.
lot of Komatsu excavators. Well, I've known through the NDA, I've known Tim and Scott Homrich for many, many years. And when I mentioned to them that we were looking for a dealer in Michigan, and that we really had a gleam in our eye for AIS, they were very kind, and they put in, basically, as you say, they put in a good word for us with their friends at AIS. And just last month, we met with AIS, and it looks very positive. We'll see. I mean, obviously, we have to cross some T's and dot some I's, but it was a very positive meeting because of the synergies there with relationship with Homrich, which has been going on for many years, and it just meant that that they could put in a good word, and it kind of facilitated, and it made it a little bit more attractive, I think, for AIS to consider taking this leap, which it's never inconsequential for a dealer to take on a new product line. It's a learning curve. Again, their salespeople have a lot to cover already. Now there's another brand, another set of features and benefits to learn, new segments to serve, all of these things. It's not an easy thing to do. And so you're exactly right. It takes it takes a village to often to make that happen. And then other times, a dealer will be there. One dealer who's taking us on in the Southeast, when we met with them, it was something which I remember to this day. He said, "We saw you at ConExpo in 2017, which was again the very first year that Mechalak was even active in the U.S." He said, "We've been interested in you, and we've watched you since then. And now we have people coming in asking us for Mechalak, asking us, can you get me a Mechalak?" And he said, "So we've watched you, we've been interested in you, but we just didn't want to be the first." And I thought, well, yes, that makes perfect sense. If you're a dealer, an equipment dealer, you don't want to take on a brand that, for all you know, is going to disappear in 3 years.
Sure.
Because for whatever reason. So you really want to make sure that you pick carefully and that there's some legs to the brands and to the product that you're taking on. And so, yes, part of success in this business is time. I don't think we're particular geniuses, but we've now been here for 7 years. And so now people can say, oh, okay, I think they're going to stick. I think this is going to work. So maybe I should get involved. Right. And really, it's no different with the end users, with the in this case, the demolition contractors. They also don't want to buy a piece of equipment and then 2 years later it's an orphan. They and I will tell you that if looking at the bigger picture in the demolition industry, there are a lot of companies that have come along trying to sell shears, for example, steel shears, those are no joke. Those they abuse them. They really demand a lot of these machines that are basically cutting steel all day long. And it's no surprise that there are two major players in that industry, Stanley LaBounty, which will soon be Epiroc, and Genesis, which is a brand which is now owned ultimately by Komatsu. And there are some others. Shear Fortress is another good brand. There's some other, Kinsofer makes a very good shear, but the two 800-pound gorillas in the industry are Stanley LaBounty and Genesis. They've been doing it for a long time. Arguably, LaBounty actually invented the concept of a steel shear in the demolition industry, and then went from there. So again, if you're a demolition contractor, it's a very easy decision to buy one of the two big players because they've been around a long time. You'll get spare parts. That if something goes wrong, they'll look after you. When you pick a brand that you haven't really heard of, it's a little tougher to make that decision. You know what they say, well, it's probably a dated reference, but no one ever got fired for buying an IBM computer,
Mm,
because you knew that even if you paid a little bit more, you knew that they were going to look after you. And
right.
that's really like any industry, but the demolition contractors in particular really put their equipment through its paces. I mean, they demand a lot from their
Mm,
equipment. And so to be successful, you really need to listen to the demolition industry. You have to understand that their needs and requirements are going to be a little bit more demanding than perhaps somebody who's digging a trench in a field. Um, they demand a lot of their equipment, and but they're loyal. You know, once they've decided that you're fit for their purpose, they're wonderful people to work with. Uh, they really are. They're fair. They're as I say, they're loyal. They're loyal to their good suppliers.
yeah, I love that. And also too, the innovation that you guys have, like you don't get a lot of innovation out of the big stodgy, just this is what it is, buy it in the box or don't. That's the cool thing with you guys is you may not have been in the US market for decades, but you've been in the business. Like you said, it's 50th year celebration. So like
That's right.
the brand is there, the backing is there, everything is there, plus you
Yes,
get the innovation.
absolutely. You get a hungry company that is very much focused on coming up with the next big thing, and
Mm,
already have a whole range of machines that are pretty cool. If I though I say it myself, they're pretty cool. We're introducing a machine this year. I hope to get my first ones at the end of this year, called the Revo truck, which is a dumper machine, a site dumper in effect, and the cab rotates. So
cool.
so as you're driving it along in the typical way with the dumper body in front of you, and we have a 6 ton or a 9 ton capacity. Um, when it's empty, you drive it the way most site dumpers are driven, with the dump body in front of you. But when you've got a heaping pile of aggregate or dirt or debris in that dumper, the whole cab rotates, and now you're driving it like a compact dump truck. The load is
Cool.
behind you, and you have perfect vision, all around vision of everything in front of you. So it's very safe. Um, and then the dump body swivels and the cab swivels. So if you're dumping over the side, the cab can rotate. So you're watching exactly what's going on as you're unloading, as you're tipping out the load. Um,
Hmm.
and that's called the Revo truck. It's won Red Dot Design Awards already in Europe. Uh, it's uh, it's it's really cool, and a game changer. Um, we showed it at Bauma a couple of years ago, and large construction companies who had largely abandoned site dumpers because of safety concerns told us
Mm,
that they're ready to jump back in, because now with the rotating cab, you can you can see ahead of you, rather than relying on cameras in the cab to see where you're going. So those are the kinds of things that
that's cool.
really make it fun to work with Mechalak, fun to be dealing with different segments, industry segments. And of course, it's been a pleasure to stay connected with the demolition industry, which I've been involved with for all these years, and to bring new concepts to the party. I will say that, as I mentioned earlier, Tim Ramone, Ramone Demolition San Antonio, is hosting this year's live demo event. And he has been threatening to buy a Mechalak 6 MCR for a few years now. And I'm hoping that this will be the year that we will bring one down there, and I will leave it there.
Yeah, he'll say just keep it here.
Which would be tie a little blue ribbon around it. So that would be very nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, or maybe to make it difficult, he's like, well, this one's already had a few demos on it, so let's just get a new one.
I want a new one.
This one back, get me a new one. I can't deal with a few days of Demolition demos using it. It's tough to say that, demos of demolition work or demos of demolition equipment.
That's right, a demo. Yep.
Man, oh man. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, Peter. Is there anything you care to share? Last little takeaways or tidbits before we sign off?
No, I love what you're doing. I think it's I feel like the demolition industry is misunderstood in many ways. I have the utmost respect for what these folks do. I've attended as I say, the NDA conventions for 25 years. I've now started to go to the Demolition Summit, the World Demolition Summits, where they have a global representation of demolition companies who make presentations and who are up for awards. And it is amazing the complexity of some of the jobs that these folks do. It gives you a stomachache to think
the
of
risk too, the safety concerns,
risk, safety issues, of demolishing a building that's over railroad tracks, over active subway systems. I mean, bridges that next to active bridges. What these folks do safely, efficiently to make way for the next thing is the level of complexity is what always strikes me. And not every time, but even taking a smokestack down, toppling a smokestack, there's so much more to it than just certainly imploding it or pushing it over. And I just think that's something which has struck me for 25 years, how much goes into these jobs, which the man on the street just has no clue as to how much complexity is involved in doing it safely and cleanly. And of course, there's all the hazard, not to mention all the abatement, all the hazardous material they have to contend with, which is huge. And so that's been fun. And to be able to kind of be we're obviously, as being in the equipment business, we're peripheral to that.
Right.
We're supplying them. We're trying to support their efforts, bring new technologies to help them do their jobs better. And that's fun too. Obviously, I like that side of the business, and that's what's kept me going all this time.
That's awesome. Well, Peter, any good way for people to reach out to you, be it your website, your team, a phone number, an email, anything that you're comfortable with sharing?
Absolutely. You can find us www, I still think we say that, Mechalak.com, and it's MECALAC, Mechalak.com. But you're probably best off if you go to YouTube and type in Mechalak videos. There are hundreds and hundreds of Mechalak videos of our machines doing cool things. And that's there's a great way to waste an afternoon of doing that. But sure, obviously we'd love to talk with anybody who's interested in seeing what we have to offer. And they can start with the website, Mechalak.com, and go from there.
Cool. Yeah, so different times than back in the day where it's like, here's my phone number, you can send me a letter at this address. It's very different now. It's just like, here's the website, maybe a phone number, maybe an email. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, awesome. thank you guys so much for listening. Peter, thank you so much for coming on the episode. Lots of really, really cool wisdom behind the scenes. I'm sure our audience, they learned a lot, some of which they maybe already knew some of, and they further got supplanted. And, for myself and probably for a lot of our audience, learned stuff they had no idea of. So thank you so much for being on the episode. Peter and I are signing off, guys. Thank you so much.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Stay tuned and subscribe for more explosive insights from our upcoming episodes. Until then, continue to blow up your demolition business and make the competition rubble in your path.